The first double agent in FBI history, from forced Nazi spy to America's silent hero. On a quiet February day in 1970, a man passed away in California. His funeral was small, just his wife and a few neighbors stood by. To them, he was simply William G. Sebold, a reserved immigrant who had lived a modest life. Yet hidden in the shadows of history, Sebold was the central figure in one of the most extraordinary intelligence operations ever conducted on American soil. He was not a headline, nor a celebrated hero. His work was classified, his role erased from the public eye. But decades earlier, in the tense years before America entered the Second World War, Sebold stood at the heart of a daring counterintelligence mission. He faced impossible choices, navigated dangerous double lives, and helped dismantle the largest spy network the FBI had ever encountered. What drove this reluctant man to risk everything? And how did his story disappear so completely that, by the time he died, the world had already forgotten him? The late 1932nd were a time of mounting tension. Europe was on the brink of another devastating conflict, while across the Atlantic, the United States watched cautiously from a distance. Although officially neutral, America's industries were producing technology and equipment that would soon prove critical to the Allied war effort. These advancements, from aircraft designs to precision bomb sights, became highly sought-after prizes for foreign intelligence services. William G. Sebold's life up to that point seemed far removed from the shadowy world of espionage. Born in Germany in 1899, he served briefly in the Imperial German Army during the final months of the First World War. In the early 1922nd, he left a struggling homeland and built a new life in America, learning English, taking odd jobs, and eventually earning citizenship in 1936. For Sebold, that citizenship was more than a document. It was a pledge of loyalty to a country he had chosen. But in 1939, his world shifted. Traveling back to Germany to visit his ailing mother, Sebold found himself in a nation transformed by authoritarian rule and preparing for war. His American passport, once a symbol of safety, now made him a target. Approached by agents of the German Abwehr, he was pressed for information about his former work in the US aircraft industry. The pressure turned into open threats, and soon, refusal was no longer an option. Sebold was told he would return to America, but this time as a spy. His training included radio communications, coded messages, and the use of microfilm to conceal stolen documents. Every skill he learned was meant to serve a foreign power. Yet, even as he prepared for his journey back, Sebold knew he would never fulfill the mission they expected of him. When he stepped off the ship in New York in early 1940, he carried with him not only spy equipment, but also a secret decision to walk straight into the offices of the FBI and offer his services as a double agent, the reluctant spy. When William G. Sebold agreed to the Abwehr's demands, it was not out of loyalty, but survival. The threats were real, and in Nazi Germany, such promises carried lethal weight. His handlers placed him under the supervision of Nikolaus Ritter, operating under the name Dr. Renken, a seasoned intelligence officer who specialized in targeting the United States. Ritter equipped Sebold with cash, camera equipment, coded instructions, and the names of agents already operating in New York. In Hamburg, Sebold learned the tradecraft of a spy. He mastered Morse code transmissions, practiced encrypting messages using a book cipher, and learned how to turn detailed blueprints into microphotographs no larger than a postage stamp. He was trained to spot surveillance, deliver instructions to operatives without arousing suspicion, and maintain a convincing cover story. On paper, he was to return as Harry Sawyer, a diesel engineer establishing a legitimate business in New York. In reality, he would be the link between the Abwehr and its American operatives. But Sebold's mind was set long before his return voyage. The moment his ship docked in New York in February 1940, he contacted US authorities. The FBI recognized the unprecedented opportunity here was a trained Abwehr asset willing to operate under their control. Overnight, Sebold became the Bureau's first true double agent. From that point forward, every step he took was a performance played on two stages, one for his German handlers and one for the agents who watched his every move. Each meeting, each coded transmission, was a calculated move in a dangerous game where one slip could cost his life. A secret pact with the FBI. The meeting between Sebold and the FBI was deliberately quiet, held away from prying eyes. Inside a nondescript office, he laid out the details of his recruitment, the names he had been given, and the methods the Abwehr expected him to use. The Bureau listened carefully. This was no ordinary informant. This was a man already embedded inside the enemy's network, capable of feeding intelligence in real time. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover understood the scale of the opportunity. With Sebold's cooperation, they could not only monitor German agents in America, but also collect irrefutable evidence against them. The Bureau decided to take an unusual risk. Rather than expose the spies immediately, they would let the operation run, building a case piece by piece. To support Sebold's cover, the FBI rented 2 offices on Broadway in New York City. One was fitted to look like the workspace of a diesel engineer, complete with drafting tables and technical manuals. The other, hidden behind a discreet door, was a fully equipped surveillance room with soundproof walls, concealed microphones, and a 2-way mirror. From this location, Sebold would host meetings with Abwehr operatives. They would enter believing they were conferring in private, unaware that every word was being recorded and every gesture filmed. The setup was a masterstroke of counterintelligence. The FBI didn't have to chase suspects through the streets. Instead, the suspects came directly to them. It was a delicate balance. Sebold had to maintain the trust of his German contacts while following the FBI's instructions to gather maximum evidence. He met couriers, engineers, and seasoned operatives, all while pretending to be a loyal agent. To the Abwehr, he was a valuable asset. To the FBI, he was the linchpin in dismantling a sprawling spy network. The 42nd Street office. From the outside, 42nd Street was just another busy corner of New York City, a place where office workers hurried past neon signs and the rumble of streetcars echoed between buildings. Few could have guessed that behind one ordinary door, the FBI had built one of the most sophisticated surveillance traps of the era. Sebold's front office was carefully staged to match his cover story as a diesel engineer. Technical drawings lay on drafting tables, mechanical parts sat in neat rows, and his desk was scattered with engineering journals. It was the perfect camouflage enough to convince any visitor they were meeting a man devoted to his trade. But just beyond that facade was the heart of the operation. The second room, accessible only to FBI personnel, was soundproofed and rigged with the latest technology. A 2-way mirror allowed agents to watch every meeting without being seen. Concealed microphones captured each word in crisp detail, while a motion picture camera silently documented the encounters. The beauty of the setup was its simplicity. Sebold didn't need to arrange dangerous street meetings or risk passing messages in public. Instead, the Abwehr's agents came straight to him, bringing stolen documents, technical blueprints, and whispered reports. They believed they were in a secure environment. In reality, they were walking directly into the FBI's evidence vault. Here, Sebold met with figures like Everett Roeder, who smuggled engineering plans from Sperry Gyroscope, and Lily Stein, a skilled social operator who used her charm to gather secrets from high-ranking contacts. Each session added another layer to the Bureau's growing case, every photograph and recording a future courtroom weapon. Day after day, Sebold played his role with precision, balancing the dangerous trust of his German handlers against the watchful eyes of the FBI. One wrong word could unravel everything, yet in that modest office on 42nd Street, the fate of the largest spy ring in US history was being sealed. Unmasking the spies. By the spring of 1941, the office on 42nd Street had become a revolving door for enemy operatives. Each one arrived believing they were stepping into a safe meeting space, yet every visit only deepened the FBI's evidence against them. Sebold's guests were a mix of personalities and skill sets. Everett Roeder, an engineer with access to sensitive military technology, handed over blueprints for devices like bomb sights and gyroscopic equipment. He was bold, sometimes too bold, even brandishing a pistol during one meeting as he spoke about his work. Sebold kept his composure, knowing every moment was being recorded behind the glass. Then there was Frederick Fritz Duquesne, a seasoned operative with a flair for storytelling. He arrived with sketches and photographs of new weapon systems, along with intelligence on US naval designs. Charming yet suspicious, Duquesne carefully scanned Sebold's office for listening devices. The FBI agents watching held their breath, but Sebold deflected suspicion by chatting casually about diesel engines until Duquesne relaxed. Lily Stein brought a different talent to the network. Skilled in cultivating influential acquaintances, she acted as both messenger and recruiter. Through her, Sebold passed coded microphotographs concealed in everyday objects, all while the FBI logged every transaction. The strength of the operation was in its patience. Rather than making arrests at the first sign of wrongdoing, the Bureau let the meetings continue, gathering a mountain of evidence. Every document, every recorded conversation, was another piece of a puzzle that would eventually expose the entire network. By early summer, the FBI's files were overflowing. They knew the identities of couriers, financiers, engineers, and recruiters. The Duquesne Spy Ring, as it would later be called, was no longer an invisible threat. It was mapped, documented, and ready to be dismantled. The Great Takedown, June 1941, marked the turning point. For over a year, the FBI had let the Duquesne Spy Ring operate under Sebold's watch, every meeting and message quietly captured. Now, with the investigation complete and war in Europe escalating, it was time to strike. The operation was planned with military precision. On the evening of the 28th of June, more than 200 FBI agents fanned out across New York and beyond. Their orders were clear: arrest every identified member of the network at the same moment, leaving no chance for warnings or escapes. Sebold himself was kept in the dark until the last minute. He had to maintain the illusion that everything was normal, even as the walls were closing in on the people he met regularly. That evening, his FBI handler arrived and quietly escorted him and his wife to a safe house. The raids were swift. Everett Roeder was taken at home, his basement later found to contain thousands of rounds of ammunition and stolen military documents. Lily Stein was arrested in her apartment, reportedly making a wry comment when she learned her phone had been tapped. Duquesne was caught by an undercover agent posing as a neighbor, his pockets filled with sketches and weapon notes. In total, 33 individuals were captured: engineers, couriers, recruiters, and seasoned operatives. The FBI's case, built from Sebold's recordings, photographs, and testimony, was airtight. Months later, in a federal courtroom, the jury delivered guilty verdicts across the board, sentencing the group to a combined total of over 250 years in prison. It was the largest espionage conviction in American history, and it had been made possible by one man who was never meant to be a spy at all. One of the most remarkable details about William G. Sebold's story is not just what he accomplished, but how completely his role vanished from public memory. After the trial, the FBI faced a new challenge: protecting the man who had just helped dismantle the largest spy ring in American history. For the rest of his life, Sebold lived under a carefully maintained layer of anonymity. The Bureau relocated him and his wife, ensuring their names never appeared in news reports connected to the case. When the arrests were announced in 1941, the FBI highlighted the leadership of Director J. Edgar Hoover and the skill of its agents, but Sebold's name was deliberately kept out of the headlines. This secrecy was partly for his safety, but also a calculated decision to keep counterintelligence methods out of public view. The protection was so effective that when Sebold died in February 1970, there was no obituary in any newspaper, no public recognition of his service. To most of his neighbors, he was simply a quiet retiree. The fact that he had once operated as the FBI's first major double agent, turning an entire spy network inside out, was known only to a select few. Even his final resting place carries that air of secrecy. In a modest cemetery in Lafayette, California, Sebold lies under a simple gravestone. Those who know his story sometimes leave a Roosevelt dime on the marker, a subtle, almost cryptic tribute to his service. It is an unspoken code, much like the ones he once used to pass information, understood only by those aware of the man behind the name. This near-total erasure from public history is rare for someone whose actions changed the course of an intelligence war. In a way, it was the perfect ending for a man who had lived in shadows. His life's greatest achievement was a story never meant for the spotlight. William G. Sebold's journey from reluctant recruit to indispensable double agent is a story of quiet heroism. He did not choose the role, it was forced upon him. Yet once in it, he turned danger into opportunity, using his position to help dismantle an espionage network that threatened America's security at a pivotal moment in history. Unlike celebrated war heroes, Sebold never stood in front of cheering crowds or appeared in newsreels. His victories unfolded in soundproof rooms, behind mirrored glass, in coded messages, and carefully staged meetings. The reward was not fame, but the knowledge that his work had safeguarded lives and vital secrets. Today, his name remains unfamiliar to most, a testament to both the secrecy of his mission and his willingness to serve without recognition. Standing by his simple grave, one is reminded that history's most decisive battles are often fought in silence, far from the public eye. If you had been in Sebold's position, would you have risked everything to turn the game against those who sought to use you?